Every day at 5 p.m., without fail, the screams echoed down the narrow alleyway of Maple Street. Most people shut their windows. Some turned up the volume on their TVs. No one asked questions anymore. They already knew, it was her again. The skinny girl with haunted eyes and a bruised soul, barely 12 years old, always hunched over like she was trying to disappear. Her name was Emily. Emily lived in a small rundown apartment with her stepfather, Carl. Since her mother's death 2 years ago, Emily had become invisible to the world, a shadow flickering in and out of school, her eyes permanently glued to the floor, arms always hidden beneath oversized sweaters. Every day after school, she'd come home to the same thing, a drunken man, rage-filled, and eager to take out his misery on the only person left within reach. No one intervened. The teachers noticed her silence but chalked it up to grief. Neighbors heard the cries but told themselves, "It's not our place." And Emily? She stopped hoping. Hope, for her, was a dangerous thing, something she'd learned not to rely on. Until one afternoon, everything changed. It was late October. Emily was walking home, arms tightly wrapped around her backpack, eyes watching the cracked pavement. She didn't notice the elderly woman sitting on the park bench until she heard her voice, soft, raspy, and kind. "Sweetheart, your soul is heavy. Sit with me for a moment." Emily hesitated. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. Not kindly. Not gently. She glanced around. No one else seemed to notice the woman. Just her. Against every instinct, she sat down. The woman's name was Margaret. She had deep lines etched into her face, but her eyes sparkled like she knew a secret the world had forgotten. She didn't pry. She didn't ask about the bruises or the sadness in Emily's voice. She just talked. About books, about how fall leaves looked like God's confetti, about how even the smallest light could chase away darkness. Emily returned the next day. Then the day after. And slowly, her afternoons began to stretch longer. Her 5 p.m. dread dulled. She began arriving later, leaving earlier, just to steal more time in the safety of Margaret's presence. One chilly evening, Margaret handed her a small, worn-out book. It was The Little Prince. "I used to read this to my daughter," she said. "She was your age when she passed." Emily clutched the book like it was made of gold. That night, for the first time in years, she cried, not from pain, but from the kindness she couldn't comprehend. But Carl noticed the shift. He saw her smile when she thought he wasn't looking. And that made him angrier. The beatings grew harsher. One night, he struck her so hard she hit the corner of the kitchen counter and passed out. That night was supposed to be the end. But fate had a different plan. The next morning, Emily woke up in a hospital bed. Confused. Terrified. Expecting to see Carl's rage-filled face. Instead, she saw Margaret, holding her hand, her wrinkled face filled with worry and love. "I found you," Margaret said gently. "You didn't come yesterday. I waited until it got dark, something didn't feel right. So I followed you home. I saw everything." Emily burst into tears. She didn't have the words, just sobs that shook through years of silence. Margaret had called the police. Carl was arrested. It turned out there were other reports against him, other children, other scars. The system had failed before. But this time, it didn't. This time, someone cared enough to stop pretending. Margaret applied to be her guardian. And a month later, it was official. Emily moved into a small cottage on the edge of town, where the windows were always open, and the scent of cookies danced through the halls. She went back to school. She started therapy. She started reading again. Laughing again. Living again. Years later, at her high school graduation, Emily stood on stage and gave a speech that left the audience in tears. I was invisible once. I thought no one saw me. I thought no one cared. But one person did. One person noticed. One person stopped. And because of her, I learned that kindness isn't just a nice word. It's a life raft. The audience rose in applause. Margaret, now with a cane and a warm smile, stood beaming in the front row. Today, Emily is a social worker. She spends her days looking for shadows like the one she used to be. And every 5 p.m., no matter where she is, she pauses for a moment. Not in fear, but in gratitude. Because she remembers. And she vows to be someone's miracle, just like Margaret was hers. Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to rewrite someone's entire story.